Fair. Hello, everyone, and welcome to show number 301. 301.
301.
301. We're in the 300s officially, not just starting it, but well on our way in the 300s. With us today, thank you so very much, as always, is Miss Adele Gutman with AdeleGutman.com and Mr. Dean Schmidt, which is with the Witness Protection Pro. I mean, he's with, what is that, the masking company? Oh, yes, Basecamp Meta Search Marketing. Yeah, that's the story.
That's what we'll call it. We'll stick it with it.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. We're sticking with that. It's kind of, I got to say, it's kind of fun. And Adele, I miss you on times, but I love it when you're there. Is we all week we do the Clubhouse thing, and the dialogue is, I mean, it's persistent. I mean, if anything, it's as much as I go grumble, I got to go do this thing at noon. Sometimes I get off of it and I'm like, okay, first off, I feel much more in tune with what people are thinking, not the stuff that's being pushed out there, for clickbait or buzz terms or whatever, or trying to just generate traffic, but really what people are thinking. And it's been kind of interesting following the ebbs and flows of optimism, pessimism, skepticism, concern, confusion, just even in these past few months. I mean, I actually got to count them up. We started the first week of February or something. I got to remember when.
About right.
So we're clicking close to 100 shows or whatever, of doing this, because we've done it every day, Monday through Thursday. We've not missed one since then. So 4 times whatever the weeks are. It's a healthy number of being informed and conversational. And you all have been on it many times. And it is kind of neat to hear people's perspective of it. And it echoes a little bit of how we do it here. I mean, obviously we're talking heads and we do different distribution and what have you, but the concept's the same, of just relevancy of current conversations of what's going on right now. And it's really beginning to see, even from Robert's last list he gave us, the separation between those that are being successful and those that are just not getting it done. And brands, unfortunately, a lot of brands, not your Wyndham, by the way, Mr. Dean, they did well on their earnings potential.
The numbers looked good, yeah.
When you compare it against the other brands like Hilton, they did amazingly well because they were able to create great cost efficiencies. I don't know whether you read Robert's. I was just reading it actually before this from last week's list he gave us. Robert gives us the list that we like, but then he has gotten very expansive in his dialogue prior to the list. I mean, he'll get very in-depth with his newsletter discussion. Yeah. And I read it briefly last week because it came out just, right around the show start or just after the show started, so I didn't get a chance to really spend time with it. But I thought I'd spend a little time with it prior to this show. And his referral references to how companies fared the first quarter of 2021. It was rough for everybody. Expedia did surprisingly well for a lot of people, but that lends itself to something I was going to bring up that, Dean, you were witness of or part of yesterday's conversation in Clubhouse, and that was the disparity between the European mode of marketing and the American. And since we have Adele, who has firsthand experience at that, because she had to worry about places like, I don't know, Prague, that's a little place. Budapest. Those little towns, I don't know. I bet anybody can find. Actually, that's not good to say because most Americans probably couldn't find them on a map. But with the differences, I mean, because I had the pleasure of speaking with HSMAI as a speaker Tuesday morning, really, really early, about this a little bit. And it seems that there was such a good conversation they want to come back and kind of touch it on a different angle next week. Okay. Again, really, really, really early. I'm not a morning person. Like really early. I remember when I had European clients that I had to deal with on calls. I'm like, really? 6 a.m. for me is good for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
I had somebody yesterday that wanted to schedule a meeting with me very early on Monday morning. And I told them very candidly, I don't do meetings on Monday mornings. I'm very superstitious about it. Bad things happen. It's bad luck to do that.
I was going to pull out the religious card. It's against my religious belief. Mainly because I know I'm not a really super pleasant, chatty, like, woo, yay, let's talk about cool stuff. Yeah, I'm not that in the morning. It's more of coffee, leave me alone, that kind of mentality. But out of the dialogue, sorry, we digressed, was the gap in what used to be done in Europe when it was wholesalers and people that were just driving business for the hotels. The hotels really just were hotel centric. They focused on their operations. They focused on service quality. They focused on all the things that legitimized the operations of their business. They themselves weren't built to be their self-marketer. They didn't have property engagement to that level that we're familiar with in the US about this is what the GM needs to know. We have conversation, this is what the promotions are, so forth. They were like, look, my wholesalers, and it's a cultural thing because I noticed when I visited my family, my wife being Dutch, always in the downtown of every town was a very well-positioned travel agency. Thomas Cook, Cook Agency was usually one of them, and others, and they were the driving forces of your means of travel culturally. That's what you did when you decided you're going to do holiday. You went to the travel agency and you looked at what options and availabilities there were there, and very traditional, like big banners in the windows. Hey, we got this trip in Mallorca. Kind of stuff. And we're not familiar from that in recent years in the U.S. We used to have travel agents that were very prolific. We had, what was it, in 25 years ago or something like this, there was 47,000 travel agents. Now there's only 7,000, and most of those are corporate travel agents. So point I'm making with this with the EU is when the travel agents furloughed and paused business and like Cook went out of business, they were left with that gap point. They weren't built with their websites to handle content searches and offers and what are we doing and this is what you should know. Not that their websites were bad, but they were very thin, not a whole lot on them. So and there's no brands over there to the level that we treat brands here. Marriott, Marriott will take care of it, or Hilton. They have brands, don't get me wrong, but they're not as prolific and not as pronounced in their business model over there. So I'm throwing that on the table. It's like, like I said, Adele, you have firsthand experience of what it's like to operate a hotel in Europe. And Dean, you've dealt with many, many hotels around the world and you have the same idea. So I'm just throwing that back into the conversation.
Well, I can say I remember working for a European company many decades ago, 3 decades ago. And I remember a general manager in Europe saying to me, we don't really need hotel sales and marketing. I was from the regional office in New York. We don't need sales and marketing. We just have a reservations person. She takes the calls. She services the guests. She organizes whatever they need. That's all we need. We have the general manager, maybe my assistant or someone will show people around. It's just not necessary to have a sales department, which was a really amazing thing to say. But how much money would you lose if you have to, the fee that you're taking in is covering the whole, the receptive operator and the, and the, whatever it is, I can't even think of the word anymore. It's so distant for me now. And the, I just can't think of the word beginning with a C. It doesn't matter. Anyway, and then the travel agency that got the package from that middle company. So there are just three.
Consortia, is that what you're thinking of? No.
What?
Consortia, was that what you're thinking of?
No, not Consortia.
Okay.
I don't know why I just can't think of it. But anyway, you have three monkeys on your back, and they're just used to getting less. But once you've had a taste of getting business on your own website directly, and you're setting up the relationships with your customers so that they want to come back to you directly, it doesn't feel like something that makes sense. And I tried to open a hotel in Europe saying, I'm going to just do this the American way, put up the website, do good on TripAdvisor. We're going to be a great success. Be on the consortia if I need to. But there was simply no way of getting it done because the way the customers were used to bringing in, getting the business into a Prague hotel just didn't work like that. We absolutely had to have some wholesale business. And it wasn't just working with luxury hoteliers, which I mean, the travel agents and travel advisors like Valerie Wilson or other virtuoso travel leaders, things like this. I thought that that would be enough, but it wasn't. We absolutely needed that. And remember the old days, we had to pick a rate. We had to pick a rate more than a year and a half in advance. And that would be a set rate starting in April of the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And demand and charges, expenses were really not held into that equation. I mean, I thank goodness times have changed and we can be adaptable.
I don't know. I miss some of that old stuff, but that's okay. Mr. Dean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, right. I think that some of that stems from the fact that a lot of those properties in the European market are those independent hotels, and the proliferation of the brands is not as constant as what you see in the United States. The very principle of a brand is that, okay, I know I went to this hotel, I liked the product at this hotel, now I want to find that exact same product elsewhere. I want to cookie cutter it and rinse and repeat and do it again and again and again. Okay. Move to Europe, where you've got all these independent hotels now, and each one is a unique product, a little bit different than the other one. So now all of a sudden there becomes more of a need for that brick and mortar travel agent, Lauren, that you were talking about. That becomes a little bit more of a need for, okay, I'm not just putting out flyers at scale in math, but instead I need to have an actual human talking to you and selling a product. And especially if I'm trying to attract an international audience, which, by the way, when we think of international audience from the United States, we think of, oh, they're coming from Europe or Canada or whatever. But imagine you're somebody in the middle of Europe, you're Spain, right? And you've got countries all around you. You've got borders all around you. International isn't over the pond anymore. It's just next door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like coming from Canada or Mexico for us. So it's a much different mentality. And that's also a different type of sales cycle that gets associated with that.
Well, they even made that comment. And then that came out of our dialogue that we had going through this. Was the person that was with me was talking about the fact that an example was Portugal that they brought up. Yeah. For them, there is no real domestic travel. Here's the current scenario that they portrayed it to this. Is like, look, there's a lot more lockdowns and much more severe lockdowns in the European Union right now for lack of vaccines to be distributed with. So as they wait for the vaccines to be distributed, they're maintaining very tight protocols, very similar to what Canada's doing with the proximity to where you're living and so forth. Hotels do not have a domestic sustainability, and his example is particularly with Portugal. People in Portugal don't tend to be traveling within Portugal as much. They tend to travel out of Portugal to Spain, to France, to your point, those places. So that travel of borders being closed and municipalities being locked down and so forth from anybody traveling in or out of them literally stop the opportunity for business. Add that exacerbation to the modality of how they used to do business, which was wholesalers and so forth. It was more important when the wholesaler of a particular company came to review the hotel about what they were going to be offering than it was to have a listing on a website or Expedia, because that could make or break that hotel, how that wholesaler perceived the value of the hotel and how they would sell it in compensation for people interested in travel. So it was a big deal that this person showed up. Everything had to be pristine and perfect for them, because if not, they might not be reviewed well enough that they would be featured in the stream of selling that was going on at those wholesalers. So they talked about all of that. The problem they have right now, as he described it, was they don't know what to do. They're sitting there going, okay, these people are calling me. They never, I used to tell them, talk to the travel agent, and now they're calling me. And what do I tell them? Well, your website doesn't say this. Your website doesn't do this. Your website doesn't have this. What? It's an alien. It's as if we flipped it over, and the U.S. was now very reliant on their model. Like, how would a hotel react if it's like the wholesaler isn't going to sell your rooms because they like the hotel across the street better? What?
If only we could get a digital marketing agency from Europe on the show with us.
Right? Where's Ben and Tris these days?
Right. I know. I haven't seen them in forever.
Yeah. But it is interesting that gap point. And it's kind of neat because and this just went along with it. There were great questions or comments that were made during it, but there is a fundamental never having to face this before lack of understanding from a lot of people's perceptions in the European market. They truly don't know where to go. So what's happening is hotel.com is just snarfing up volumes of business they never had before because it's the closest simulation to what people were familiar with. And the hotels don't know where else to get business. So they're just, here's my inventory. Here's my, like we did in 2001, we did in 2008. Anytime there was a down, we're like, where can I sell my stuff? Oh, you're selling stuff here. You sell my stuff.
Sell my soul to the OTA. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there really are. And then, yeah. And as travel begins to open up, that is going to be a fundamental shift in markets because as the travel agents begin to ramp back up, they have to scale back up. And that's just going to be a time lag. And in the meanwhile, people are going to be much more eager about traveling when they have the opportunity to or the ability to. And the travel agents aren't going to be scaled to that. They're not going to have the inventory and availabilities and the infrastructure to do that. And hotels.com is probably going to go over and do well.
That's an interesting point because we talk a lot about the short staffing in all businesses, but think about that from a brick and mortar travel agent perspective for just a moment. You had a downturn in travel, so you probably let a lot of people go. Now you're trying to hire them back again. That's a very specialized job for the ones that do it well, at least anyway, because A, you've got to know a little bit about travel. You got to know a little bit about where you're going, the market, the demographics, and so on. But B, you still have to know these GDS systems, which are antiquated at best, but still used across 650,000 terminals around the globe, right? And don't follow, it's not like going onto Expedia to book a reservation. It follows a much different format.
Mm-hmm.
So how many trained GDS experts are still out there and available to go into the market? I don't know the answer to that.
Now, one thing he did bring up, which I thought was an interesting contrast to how we see labor right now, they don't see labor being a problem when business comes back. Because go ahead, Adele, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just never hear about travel advisors leaving the industry to go do something else. I haven't heard that. I am in circles and networks of people where I would see social media posts saying I'm going to do something else, I think. And as opposed to for hotel industry people and restaurant industry people say that they have left the industry to go do something else. So I think that they've been waiting, I think they've been waiting to come back, but that's what they're going to do.
They do have, he brought up the fact there are different economies there, more what I like better is socialized economies, and they're more in sustainable support of populations and so forth, what have you. But what he said was even before the pandemic, there was always a relatively high in comparison to the U.S. Unemployment. And this kind of goes a little bit to culture versus culture. The way he was describing it in my mind was once you got a job, which was harder to find in the European community for where you were at, you were more loyal to maintaining that job's relationship, even if it was seasonal, like Mallorca or Crete or Greece. That once a hotel hired you to work seasonally, you were more loyal to go back to it repetitively before having been given the opportunity to work there while you still needed that type of job. And for those that choose the profession, and I to this day am so impressed with the level of skill in hospitality internationally compared to the sometimes level of skill of hospitality domestically. Sometimes we bring people in, and no offense, as long as they can fog a mirror, they can stand behind a desk. No, again, I'm just saying this out of practicality. Where in Europe, I was always impressed that the front desk agent is speaking to me in fluent English, flips to French, French to Spanish, flips to Greek.
And that's normal to them.
Yeah.
And worked in Dubai for 5 years before they went from junior grade nobody front desk to first level prime desk or whatever. There's a working ladder of progression. The GM I met that was running a Hilton Garden Inn in Brussels was a 25-year GM vet, not 25 years of being a GM. He spent 20 years to get there. I mean, the dude, but amazing person. I mean, you're just talking to somebody, wow, because he ran hotels in I think it was in Riyadh or something, and in Russia, and all these things, and he was fluent in all these languages. And you're just sitting there going, wow. You just, I mean, I'm impressed with anybody that has multilingual capabilities anyway, because I can't master English even, let alone anything else. But just the caliber and quality and so forth. So to that end, I didn't understand his perspective. It's like, look, these people are simply waiting for when they're being told they have the opportunity to go back to their business. And for that reason, I think they're thinking that part of it that we're so worried about and having so much challenges with right now here isn't as prevalent of an issue for them over there. But that being said, we're much more in tune with what it takes to drive competitive business in our market than it seems to be that they've been exposed to more direct channel opportunity and they don't know what to do with it. It's like we handed them a key to a spaceship and they're scratching it on a rock to make a fire. They don't know what the real value of what this direct channel value is for them right now. They don't know what to do with it. They don't have it built that way. They don't have websites that way. They don't have market strategy in that way. They have no infrastructure to do those things that way as much. I'm not saying all. That's a very broad, general, across the board statement, but in consensus, it seems to be that's the way he presented their current dilemma in the European market right now.
Well, and some of that also comes from, and I was actually talking with a gentleman from HSMEI in Europe because I'm doing a project with HSMEI, and more on that later. But I was asking them about, hey, what are the channels that are driving business? And of course, direct came up. And one of the key reasons, same thing that we're seeing here, is that people want to know what sort of safety precautions is your hotel taking. They want to know, is your restaurant open? Is your spa, is your workout facility open? What's going on in the surrounding area? Stuff that we've been talking about on this show for a long time now, that people want to know, hey, what should I expect when I get there? Right. And they can't get that when they book through an Expedia or booking.com.
Yeah. Adele, what was the link you shared up with her? What is that?
It's called The Charter. It's from the Hoteliers Network in the UK, and it's asking hoteliers, I think specifically in the UK, to make a pledge where they commit to actually developing team members through training and apprenticeships, coaching, mentoring, positioning hotel roles as careers, not just jobs. Does this sound like it's hitting a chord for some of the conversations that have been out there in the US?
Yeah.
It's something that we really are lacking. I think we're sorely in need of that mentoring. What would inspire somebody to, even at this time, take a job in hospitality would be to say, no matter where I come from, no matter, what my parents did before me or what my economic status is, or even my level of education, I can, if I bring my heart and soul to this industry, I can learn how to make a great living, but not stay at the same job my whole life. You can't just treat people like a pair of hands. I keep saying this. You have to mentor them. They're asking for people to support an ambition to end low pay in the UK in hotels, and passionately believe in giving people opportunities to develop their career and give access to financial and pension guidance, they're calling it here. I'm looking at the page right now. Champion a fair and transparent service charge and gratuity system where money is distributed more fairly. Let's see. Offer colleagues access to employee assurance program, provide confidential support across all facets of their physical and mental wellness, both in and outside the workplace, provide a nourishing and positive workplace environment and a positive culture, facilitating social activities and building a coherent, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just think that that's such a powerful thing. And a bunch of hoteliers got together with no financial personal benefit to themselves to say, we've got to make this world a better place and start with our own people.
I completely agree. And I also know it's probably going to be a very large uphill thing, because it would be fair, I think, for me to say that hospitality from a domestic U.S. position is always been relatively considered as an interim position. People get in hospitality for the temporariness of the ability to get a job without a immediate skill required to get it. I can be a server at a restaurant and be trained as a server in a restaurant, or as a cook, or as a bus person, or as a dishwasher, or whatever interim. And for hotels, it could be housekeeping, front desk, food service as well. It's an entry level opportunity that requires no eminent immediate training to get that position. And then it's usually kept in a perspective until you get to do what it is that you dreamed of doing. I don't think very few people wake up going, when they're born, to say, I want to be a great food server. They just don't see it in that perspective. But I know of plenty amazing food servers that is their love of life. That is their career of choice. That is their preference to do. They don't want to go beyond it. They don't want to do anything more than what they're doing. And I say that from a first person perspective of when I was growing up and I got into service. I went into formal service. But there was a very high class restaurant that I was brought in, and I went through a very arduous process. I worked with a gentleman from Jamaica who was incredibly proud to be third generation doing exactly what he was doing, which was being a formal server. And he was amazingly brilliant at it. I mean, I'm talking about the flambés, table side, and so forth. So it was a love of, and it was a proud family career that he did that. That was, I think, more often than not the exception. And because of that, that temporariness of perception going into the jobs, the people that stay with us, the people that go in and continue on, are the ones that get bit by the bug, as we think. The hospitality bug. This is cool. I get to make people's day. I get to make their dinner. I get to make their evening. I get to make their vacation. You enjoy the feel you get when people are happy. And the industry discovers those people by those people that may have not thought about it, but did it and enjoyed it, and they got addicted to it. We've also seen the dark side of our industry, I think, too, which we might have purged ourselves from to some degree with the pandemic. We were hiring a lot of people that had no interest in hospitality, no perspective of hospitality, in high authoritative roles and I'm not going to pick on revenue management, but revenue management. They were challenged for their data skills, not for their perception of business. How can you read this data to tell me how to make the data better? How can you show me the numbers that I need to make decisions that make me more money? Nothing to do with hospitality and service and quality of product and travel and all this. It was just a function of math. And it's not the only example, but it seems to be the clearest in my mind that pops up. And we brought a lot of people in. We're put in charge of people that are like, you're telling me to do stuff that is not to the benefit of my industry, but you're doing it because you have the authority, because you were told, and we get those young guys or girls, in their 20 somethings that were put into, almost C-level levels in corporate environments, running over people that have been in this industry for 20, 30 years, running hotels, telling them what to do that wasn't ingrained with what they know was best. And I think in some ways this pandemic has purged out the fact that those people were expensive. They were not always as effective in a positive way to our industry as much as the person that brought them on thought they should be. I remember being in a lot of dialogues with just my revenue board about how to solicit these upcoming smart logistic data people to come in and be revenue managers. And I'm sitting there going, it's kind of like asking to ask the Gauls to run Rome. Eventually, someone's going to figure out you're in charge of everything, and the boss isn't really the boss anymore. And I kind of saw that, and I feel good that we kind of got away from that, at least for this past year. Whether we go back to it, but they're pretty expensive people to bring back in, and I don't know.
I love a good business intelligence dashboard where I, as a hotelier, can go in and find the information I need to make good decisions. I don't necessarily have to have, I don't feel like I have to have a person who's only, well, maybe in a bigger company, it might be different, but I feel like having people who are just focused on the financial health of the entire company and everything that comes with that including making good decisions for the hotel to be a business that thrives because the guests love it and the employees love it, and not just not just the numbers. I think that the numbers come when you're doing the right thing for everybody.
It kind of goes to, I don't know whether you all remember seeing the movie Moneyball with, was it Brad Pitt and I forget the other guy. And it was about the numerics of baseball rather than the players of baseball. Now, it had a warm, fuzzy side that it showed that the numbers worked against them when they really had the talent. But it was just the idea of it, the premise of it was, that numbers could rule this. And I felt kind of the same way about this. It really showed the polarization of how hotel hospitality has been running. We often talk about it on this show a lot. There's hoteliers that run hotels. And there's people that bought hotels for assets, and they're asset managers. They run it as a business of return and value. And nothing against them. That's great, because that means we have hotels because people are willing to invest in them. The bad of it is that everything is filtered through the filter of the finance or the numbers related to it than it is to kind of what you preach so much about, Adele, and that is the heart of hospitality, the value to the guest. Are you doing what's best for the guest, or are you doing what's best for the person that owns the building that people are coming to? And
yeah, but my belief is that when you don't have to constantly be spending money to chase business, to replace business you lost because they weren't very impressed with you and it wasn't a wow experience, so why should they be loyal to you? Now you're throwing free stays at them and free this and that, and you're negotiating more than you need to because you need something to replace what you lost, when it would have been far less expensive, the acquisition cost much more affordable if you keep the customers that you have, because you're not having a 70% guest satisfaction rating. Some hotels are dreaming of having a 70% guest satisfaction rating. They don't even comprehend that you can have a 96% guest satisfaction rating, but you can really have loyalty. And what's the cost of replacing employees? It's astronomical. It's a huge expense to hoteliers, and dissatisfied employees or not having the right number of employees, not having the skill level of employees because they don't stay with you long enough and they're not developing through the ranks. Having employees who just come in to clock in and clock out because you haven't inspired them to give more. It costs you money. I believe that it's easier and less expensive and more profitable to focus on a shared vision. We should be in the business of delivering happiness, as the guy from Zappos used to say.
We see it in retail as well. And I'll take a perfect example. If anybody's been to a Walmart recently, where they've all but eliminated the human checkout and they want everybody to use self-checkout now, and everything is it's almost like going to a Sam's Club. It might as well be. Versus I went to a local neighborhood supermarket, Lou's Thrifty Way here in my hometown, where I actually had a human interaction. A human actually checked me out. We actually had a conversation and talked to each other. And unfortunately, they're a little more expensive, and that pains me to say that, but I'll pay a little more. And the same thing happens in the hotel. If I can go to that hotel and match up with that versus the other thing, yeah, I'll pay a little more.
So
you know what, though? If I go to a place and I only have a few things and I don't want to get online and I can just zip through on my own, and if I have a problem, there's somebody standing right there ready to help anybody at the self-checkout, then I feel good about that too. It took me a little while to get used to it, but I also don't like to stand in line. So if that helps, easier, quicker, more convenient, all of that is helpful.
I think it goes back to an age old, it's not age old, it's relatively recent with the technology that's available. Manuel, I want to make sure we recognize what he pointed out in the chat. He refers to himself as a revenue manager, spends his hotel information in the front of house areas, and he thinks that without the background, the lack is very important perspective on the business that really works, which is the human interaction. And yes, they said exactly that, because one thing that I think differentiates for what I do for what other agencies in general do. There's a lot of agencies that say, oh, let's do hospitality. And they go over and they want to do marketing for hospitality. And they're technically very good at their marketing strategies. They understand how to build Facebook ads, Facebook structures, paid ads, they understand the structure of it. Their ability to communicate with the people in hospitality as to what this does and how that interacts and what they need from them gets lost a lot of times. A lot of times I come in to fix and repair relationships of existing vendors that they've decided to work with, because there's a gap that's been created between, here's this marketing agency on this side that can literally build a spaceship if you're asking them to. Problem is, you got to ask them what to do. They don't know what they can do for you until you clarify what it is you need done. And the hoteliers and the hospitality people only know hospitality language. They know their perspective. They know their understanding of it. And they can't convey what it is that they want from the people that could give it to them. And by the same token, the marketing people have no idea how it works in the industry in an intimate level. They understand marketing, but how it works within the industry, they don't know how to tailor what they can do in terms that is understood by who they'd be doing it for. So sometimes it's just thinking, oh, this been plugging this, and then all of a sudden, and now they can translate this. That being said, to Manuel's point, to be really good at this industry, it's really good that you know the industry from a first person's perspective, not just I can read a manual. As a matter of fact, one of my best training things I ever did when I went briefly with Standing Dog, Dean, was I built how to teach hospitality to digital marketers. I literally put together and explained how the hospitality industry worked, what the acronyms were, the channels of distribution, what that even meant, for God's sakes. Because we take for granted in our fluency of familiarity when we start talking about OTAs. When I talk about OTAs, I mean our OTAs. When I talk to my wife, who's a football fan, OTAs is not OTAs. OTAs is some training camp or something for football players, and it's probably a dozen other things for other people for the acronym, because it's a pretty common acronym to create. The idea of understanding what and how it all works from the hospitality perspective is a unique language. So to Manuel's point, that it's like, look, you need to understand how this functions in the industry itself, just not what you're doing outside of it. So yes, kudos to you, Manuel, for the fact that you recognize one of your strongest assets as a revenue manager is your first person familiarity with what the industry actually does. But we are at a juxtaposition, I think, in some ways. We don't have the manpower resources prior to COVID, and especially now. So all that, what we just talked about, Dean, about having a person there that can interact with, having a person there to help facilitate and so forth, is a challenge right now. So the only thing is that technology can help with that. For lack of a better metaphor, as you brought up, that they need self-checkout lines, because there's just not enough warm bodies to be personal checkout lines. Mm-hmm. But again, to just echo what you said, Joe, is that there's times where that's okay. Okay, I just want to get out. I can take care of it myself. And there's other times of, this is my first time here. I'm a new person in this town, talk to me, tell me what's going on. Tell me, I got 1,000 questions I couldn't find answers for. And now that I got you in front of me and you live here, right? Yeah, let me tell you. And just, go right at them.
Yeah. I'm so grateful if I go to the airport and there's a JetBlue person monitoring all the kiosks where people are printing out their boarding passes, because we get stuck. Things happen, unfortunately.
Tell me how much of a fun feeling that is when you're in a rush already. You go to these two dinky kiosks and the thing isn't working the way it says it's supposed to be working, right? And there's not a soul in sight. And meanwhile, there's people behind you going, moving on, you're moving on, you're moving on, and every one of the other kiosks is the same. And you look around and really the same blank stares from the people that are in the same situation. You're like, what's this do what? It says it's supposed to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm on step 2, and it doesn't look like step 2 is supposed to be doing this. It's frustrating as heck. And that's where we can be great at what we do, is recognizing what resource is exactly right at the right time when it's needed. Lobby lizards. How many times we play lobby lizard?
It's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
the guy that I interviewed, Jeff Kulik, for the general manager of the London in West Hollywood, during COVID, he put his desk in the middle of the lobby so that he could be there all day, see what's going on, put out fires and sparkle sunshine on people. And I'm sure it made the people who were at the desk, who are going through incredible stress. You can only imagine from reading people's comments about what the experience of being a front desk person has been like for the last year, and that he's there for them.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you're bringing that up, and there's something I'm working with a client right now. They have labor challenges right now, as all of them do, and they're also having a labor bleed. That even though they're a great company, and some of the people that have been with them for a number of years, the opportunities are just too great elsewhere right now. There's chances that people have elsewhere that are they're being offered more money. There's more title growth. There's more opportunity for growth, whatever it is. So as good as they are related to where they are working, there's just the grass is greener on the other side for them for what they want in life.
If we're not giving them a roadmap to professional development and career success, then you're only talking about what's now and what's now. Right. And in that case, if they already have some hospitality skills, that can be very easily transferable. But you know what? I'm so tired of people saying, oh, but I pay the same as what other hotels pay, so what I pay can't be the problem. But you can't just compare yourself to what other hotels pay. Right. You have to compare yourself to the rest of the wide world.
Well, they were just saying, in comparison to average spend by industry for type of position, you look at an Amazon, there's on average $26 an hour. I mean, I know there's lots of 15, but on average, they're overall, from the perspective, is $26 an hour when you include benefits and blah, 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 blah. And servers in restaurants, the best industry number they can come up with is $18 an hour when you add all of what it is. So how can you, and again, we go back to the adage when people say, well, if it wasn't for the government funding and so forth, there is some interesting things that come out of the conversations of this. One is that a lot of people, for stability, are looking at jobs that are more stable, given the ups and down potentials of these kind of things. And so they're training right now. So no, they're not going back to work and losing their opportunity of what monies they can make right now, when they can spend all of their time learning how to go from a delivery person, at Uber, or a driver at Uber or Pizza Hut or whatever it is, to a tech specialist, which requires certification and that requires training. And yes, why not, while I'm still getting money income at the level I'm able to get it from the government, do that so that then I can get that job that then can have all the other things that I want to it. That's not that. And that's the other thing, that we look at things. Oh, it's so funny. I was talking about this, that it feels like you're spoiled in a bad relationship, or you're on the bad side of the relationship, where it's not you, it's me. And it's that you feel betrayed. Like, well, I bought you dinner the other night, or and you're going, it's like, it's not any of those things. It's just not enough of anything. It's just, I'm not upset with you. I'm just not totally you're not totally what I want to be with in life going forward. So we had fun. We had great. This is good. Let's still be friends. Not going to happen, but who else? And move on, because you're not the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And the companies are acting like the spoiled person on that relationship. They're sitting around stomping their feet going, but we doing all this stuff. I gave you a raise. I did. And it's like, little too late. Now that somebody else is interested in me, now all of a sudden you want to hold my hand. Now all of a sudden you want to bring me out to dinner. Where was the holding hands and bring me out to dinner when nobody else was looking around to bring me out someplace? It's funny how it looks kind of like that to me, from that position. But from an industry perspective, the part I was getting to is that from this loss of staff and people, I said, so what does the exit interview tell you? And it baffled me that they said, well, usually we don't have one. What? How do you know why they left? Well, they said they got another job, such and such. But why did they leave? Why did that job get them away? Well, it was more money. Are you sure? Is that just the best answer they could give you so you'd shut up? It's actually, and then I found out there's a breakdown. And this is how we're doing with HR. HR is brought in either too late or not at all. they're not active in, Adele, exactly what you're talking about. What companies, good companies, always HR is involved with dialogue. Success of the individual. What is it they're looking to do? Are you finding everything you want to do? They survey people, which is a part I was getting to them with. Is like, you need to start surveying your people overall persistently. Get feedback from them. Make it anonymous at first so they can trust you that you're using the information correctly, and then eventually allow them to identify themselves when they feel that they can trust you with that kind of information. But did you ask your front desk, what do they need? Did you ask
Yes,
front
that
desk?
should be every day. Simon Sinek has a video out on YouTube. I think it's labeled empathy. But in that video, he has a section where he's talking about entering a Four Seasons hotel, and there's just this amazing sparkle of sunshine at the Starbucks in the lobby, who is just dazzling everybody with his very warm entry to the day, and making everybody feel great. And Simon Sinek said, "Wow, you seem like you really love your job." I do, I really do, and I have an opportunity to make people happy, and I feel great about it. And he said, I have another job in another hotel where it's completely different. In this hotel, the manager comes out and says, "Good morning, thank you for what you're doing. Is there anything you need? Anything we can do to be of help? Make your experience more successful." And so he always has everything he needs. He has the ear, and he feels appreciated. And at the other hotel, they just said, "Get in the lobby and start selling those coffee cups." I wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see this. No, I don't think you can.
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's. It's a gas station.
I know, it's an awesome gas station. Well, it's more than a gas station, but
It's
yeah,
more
it's
than
got
a gas
gas.
station
It's a huge
because
store with gas.
it's like Disney World store behind it, with T-shirts and all kinds of food and everything you can possibly imagine. It's crazy. And minimum wage paid weekly at Buc-ee's is for cashier, food service, gift shop, or houseware or warehouse, $15 to $17. Maintenance or car wash, $16 to $18. Team leader, $17 to $20. Assistant, $22 and up. And management trainee, $26, including 40-hour work weeks, healthcare, 401k, 3 weeks paid time off. A lot of hotels do not start you at 3 weeks paid time off in America.
There's an article that's up recently, mandatory PTO. We as a culture in the US are in this rat race mentality. If I blink, my internal competition is going to take credit for and or perform better than me, and they're going to be rewarded where I didn't, and just when I was ready to get rewarded. This annualization of reviews, and you've heard me rant about this many times, that biasness of whatever is the last thing in my mind is the way that it is predominant way I review, rather than of really truly accounting for the entire time frame that I'm looking back on. So not standardizing the review process, but allowing the rewards to be fluid. When somebody does well and it's worth it, then they get rewarded in due kind. Acknowledgments and so forth. Adele, I think would be the queen of that. But recognizing and acknowledging people's successes as they perform them, not waiting for a special event or occasion, holiday party, going, "Oh, and Susie Q, housekeeper, who did all these great works, we're going to reward her for a year worth of doing something by a Starbucks gift card." Like, okay, that's a little for a lot. But doing the intrinsic rewards in between. We have to fundamentally shift this idea of mandatory PTO, forcing people to realize you do need to step away, and we're asking and requiring you to do so, because employers are the worst at it. Okay, go have fun on vacation. Hey, check your emails. That's not vacation. Don't check your emails. Don't respond. There is a rule, that says when such and such is on vacay, they are out of consideration of dialogue. And I don't care, because it's always something that will come up and say, "Oh, well, they're the only one." Well, guess what, guys? This is the day we get to figure out how we can cover up for the only one that could solve it. We're going to be better at what we do to figure it out. And I think clients and people in general would appreciate the sacrosanct you point them out, that if they're ranting and raving and mad about something and only Dean can fix it, but Dean is on vacation and I know Dean's at home, he could answer the call if he wanted to. I'm not calling him. Instead, I'll be happy.
I have to say, I don't mind if people call me from on vacation.
We all have our
if I can
preferences,
be
and that's the
helpful.
problem, though. But see, we allow that infraction. We ourselves on the other side have to go stop. You know, we have to stop because it's the most underutilized aspect of a job that we have. What I forget the statistics, but there's a huge statistic. The U.S. people do not take vacations. They're full vacations.
Yeah, that's why one of the big things that you see a lot of, especially tech companies now, promoting about themselves is unlimited vacation days, right? And it sounds really cool. That's really attractive, but they do it for two reasons. One is they know that most people won't take them, that you'll only take your 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. There is another reason, though, actually, and for anybody that's been through a layoff, actually, some states require that if you are laid off from a job, that you have to pay out any unused vacation days, okay? Well, if your policy is you have unlimited vacation days, there's no number. So that requirement now goes away. So it's kind of a loophole to that. But yeah, I like that idea of a mandatory vacation day. So let's say you get unlimited vacation days, but you have to take X number of days off, maybe per month, per quarter, whatever it may be. Don't save them until the end of the year and then everybody takes off in December.
Right. But with that, I think if you can look at any positiveness that comes out of this past year, not because of the tragedies that have come through the year, but from the change in perceptions as a society, is this mindfulness of there is more to life than the race associated with our professions. You know what? I'm not going to miss my child's recital because of me and Bob going in competition with that, who can work and kiss the butt of the boss better than each other, you know, and how I'm always there for you, boss, till 8 p.m. You know me, I'm in at the crack of dawn and I'm the last one out the door. I lived in that culture. I was in that race of I had to be first in and last out. I had to show my dedication. I had to put a tattoo on me, man, you know, and it is not worth it, because as I was literally told in the position of, when I finally got in very high within the company and so forth, they said, Lauren, look, you're going to do great at your job and you're going to probably do everything you want. And you're going to probably sacrifice a lot more than you want to. That trip that you were going to go on, but they needed you someplace else, or you had to not get home that night as soon as you want to, or extend that, all that stuff. You think that you was all getting added up into benefits of perception and so forth. These people are going to show up at your funeral, say how good you were at it. And as they're walking by your grave, going to say, and who filled their role? You're not that. Nobody's that. Nobody is that. At the end of the day, no matter how much you're appreciated, somebody else is going to sit in your chair, because if you're so valuable to do what you're doing, they need that same person, another person, to do the same thing. So why sacrifice your value of life for someone that's not appreciating it at the same level that you're doing it?
So let me play devil's advocate for that for just a moment here. So is there a price tag that goes with that? Is there a certain threshold where—
Yes, women face it every day. Women face it every day.
Yeah, well, I was going to say $500,000 salary. Is that a threshold where I say I'm paying you $500,000 and yeah, I expect you to be here until 8 o'clock at night?
Yeah, look, no, there are certain jobs that have certain levels that this is the job. Unfortunately, your job is this.
Yeah.
Okay. That, hey, a police officer can't say, hey, I want to go home and have donuts. I don't want to really be at work today. No, there are certain jobs you have to be behind the front desk. But here's where I think I have met, and we've had this conversation in Women's Month, January, and so forth. I have met amazing women that should be far beyond their title that they were, simply because they said, I'm not going to sacrifice my family to do what is being asked of me.
Right.
And you're sitting there going, you are freaking brilliant at what you're doing, and you're listening to a dorkhead above you that is half the grain of salt of what you're capable of doing. And yet, because they're in that role, they get to do what they do. It's simply because as a woman, they said, I have a child and I have to be the primary person that takes care of that child, whether it's society-based or not, whether they're marriage-based or not. It's a reality of the fact that they suffer the most, and exactly that negativity of, oh, gee, Adele, Lauren was there until 8 o'clock last night. Whether I was picking my nose or not doesn't make it count, but I was there until 8. Adele did all her work and was done by 4:30, made it home for her daughter's recital. But because she left at 4:30, well, Lauren seems to be really the dedicated soul here. And I'm going over there going, what? It's completely unfair.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have a friend who I worked with her at one point, and after that, she did a shared position with another mother, where she came in for 2.5 days or 3 days to be a sales manager, and then another woman came in for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to be the sales manager, and on Wednesday they shared their notes and bonded, did whatever it is
The
to make
overlap.
sure that they were really as a team with
Mhm.
their accounts. And it was so successful that she actually got a letter from Bill Marriott congratulating her for producing as much or more as a
Mhm.
full-time salesperson just in her halftime.
Yeah.
And I think that creative plans like that should be embraced. And I really am loving the 4-day work week conversation that's happening right now. I'm
Yeah.
hearing a lot about it, working 4 days for 10 hours. Frankly, I pretty much work 10 hours every day anyway.
Yeah.
So I would love to have a 3-day weekend. I think that 2 days is not enough to really decompress because I'm catching up on chores of life. And
Yeah.
I didn't really have time to chill.
So here's a reality to this. First off, I have lived in the world, and I think all of us have. I literally would look down the hallway at my boss's light in his office, and I would not leave until they left.
I've
I
Mhm.
done
wanted
that.
them to walk by my office to see I'm still here. And how many dinners did I lose with my wife by that? I can't even count. I can't even count how many times we could probably had dinner together, but didn't because I stayed that much later to make sure that my boss saw me sitting in a chair. You know where that got me? Nowhere. I don't even talk to the dude anymore. That's 8 years ago, 10 years ago. That was wasted life of mine that I had and it didn't change my position. I didn't go up past where I was at that point for that whole effort that I did. I was just validating my existence for what I was doing. That being said, I think also too in my current world, I don't answer emails on the weekends. I know I can. And unless it's a really like something really broken, it's our responsibility that it broke. Yeah, okay. I will always I'm not gonna be like, hey, it's my weekend, leave me alone. If it's something that is a crisis, I will address it. But if it's just dialogue or follow-up or something, because I have never yet been disappointed with the fact that once I did it, it was expected. Then all of a sudden, I continually got emails on Saturdays and Sundays. I had a client call me up on a Sunday night for no crisis, just this is something something something, and I answered it once because I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
I started getting calls on Sunday night from it. I had to actually go, hey, look, I thought it was an issue, an emergency. It's not. I don't really take business calls on Sunday night. If it's a crisis, please know I will. But if it's not a crisis, it can wait until Monday. Even if I'm taking the time on the weekend to reply to stuff, I'll schedule it for Monday morning to go to them because I don't want them to think that I'm going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
answering emails on a weekend. And I'm not trying to be a dork about weekends. But in all honesty, out of all that I've learned from my brief here at time on earth is that it's not worth it if it's something that's taking away from something that I think is worth more, and that is family and time and wife and everything else. That it's like, look, this is a job, and that's it. At the end of the day, of all things, I love it. I love doing it, but there has to be in context that I don't want to take away something from my family to do it. So it's kind of, and not everybody has that luxury. I understand that. Not everybody has that. Hey, this is your work shift this week. You're pulling every night. Oh crap. you know that if that's an allowance for your job, then that's what it is. You either have two choices. One is you have to work at a level above what you're at so you have more control over your schedule, or you find another job that doesn't require you to do it. It really is that. So in lots of ways with our industry, we have to tackle these questions now. Is it really earned stripes that, well, once you've been here long enough that we care about you, we're going to give you better benefits like choosing your schedule option times or whatever. But until then, you're 24/7 with us. We can call you 2 a.m. if there's something. No, yeah, I don't think that that's as much as we should do as an industry anymore. I think that we have to earn our right to have better ways of doing things. Yes, I think skill has something to do with it. I think supervisors have more responsibility than just their mainstay people, but it's all a part of the process, I think. Anyway, that's my little soapboxy feel. I don't do weekends, just so you know. No.
I do think that childcare altogether is another thing that we really need to figure out in in all workplaces,
Yeah.
because it shouldn't cost the same to pay for somebody to mind your kids as you're going to earn.
Right.
Then, what's the point? There's got to be a way, especially in a big hotel where there are a lot of women working, some place where we could leave a child for a while. So that
The
we can
difficult,
do it.
I remember trying to tackle that once when I was running a couple of hotels together, and childcare was an issue because what we had was the hotels, the teams listed on the keys. We had to bring in our teams, our staff. They couldn't live in that area because it was too expensive for them to live. There's a lot of people, so we had to bust them down. That increased amount of time and the family commitments that they all had made it challenging, because it was like, well, if you figure transportation time plus work time plus transportation time, and we're paying them for transportation time because we're needing it, and so we're trying to make it as compensated as possible, there's still the time away from family, period. And family care, daycare and things like that, and preschool and so forth, was a critical component to their ability to work. When we started looking at what it would take for us to try to supplement and or create something, the insurance costs were freaking amazing. I'm sitting there going, what? Because there's also a massive amount of regulation, numbers of people watching, number of children, safety inspections, licensing requirements, all these things that go on perpetually with it. It had turned into, I can see why it was so expensive. I would like to point a finger at anybody that runs a childcare place and say you're just exploiting the opportunity that you can charge as much as you do. But in all honesty, when I really looked at the numbers, it's an expensive business to be in. Now, you can't stop family members and friends from saying bring them over, drop them off, and we're okay. But when you professionalize that service, man, does it get really complicated? Like, all the things that you have to deal with, and the insurance retainers are just crazy insane. And I think that comes from also parents that want to blame other than themselves anything that their child is being errant on. It's a daycare place that's why little Tommy poked little Susie, in the head with a pencil, is because little Tommy wasn't schooled well or something, and it's the school's fault for not stopping him. But we've kind of created that exacerbated problem. But I do completely agree with you that it would be wonderful if we somehow incorporate a solution process in the modality of what people need to do the work we're asking them to do. Transportation included. I mean, go try to buy a car right now. It was funny. We got our car serviced a few weeks back, for the first time. And I was killing time waiting for them to do the oil change. And I walk into the display place that they have. There wasn't a car in there. I mean, they didn't even have any cars to show you that they couldn't sell you a car. It was like,
because they don't have chips.
Yeah, they did. Nope. And isn't it weird? Such a little dinky thing, and everything's just stopping. It's just like, nope, no tips. Okay, no tip for you. But it is. It's funny too, because we're going through all these different shortages. Wood, holy jeez.
Right.
Oh my gosh. The condos I'm living in, we've been trying to get the stairs. I live on the second floor, and I have my own set of stairs that come up to it and stuff. Not that they were bad, but they were definitely getting worse. And we had a slate for the past 2 years to get them replaced. Of course, now by the time they finally get it all authorized, it's at the peak of wood cost season. So they had to go through and see what wood could be salvaged in the process of them replacing the stairs, because the guy was telling me, he says, this spanner thing was normally, $9 or something to buy. It was $112. And he had to wait a month before it came in. It was like, you're kidding me. He said, no, I'm not kidding you. He was telling me Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff, you have to order 14 to 21 days out. And in the day that they call you that it's available, if you don't pick it up on the same day, it goes to the next person in line. And you're back at the beginning again.
I know. We can trade Canada. We give you vaccines and you give us some wood.
Yeah, you know what? Yes,
we
should be like this. And you know what? We got a little town in Manhattan we can sell you with for a few beads. We're good. We can swap out this stuff again.
There you go.
That's funny. It actually came up in conversation about transactions and so forth, then that came up as an example of conversation about this whole, the story about how, for basically trinkets and baubles, the Indians gave away Manhattan, and the Indians never thought that they owned it. So they're like, hey, we got this stuff. You want to hand us this stuff? Go ahead. Sure. Yeah.
That's
Build
right.
something. Because, from a cultural perspective, they didn't feel like that land was something you not owned. It's not something that was theirs to give away. So if somebody wanted to come over and hand them stuff so that they could do something over there, it'd be like we're going to stop you. I mean, we don't own the place anyway. So, yeah, it was kind of fun that kind of came up not too long ago, actually. So, okay, I did my favorite little conversation of today, and I've tried to stay away from the labor conversation because I think that's going to be an amazing development as to where tech is going. I'm already seeing weird tech things come out. I don't know whether you saw this this air filtering system that's being put into hotels now. It's a little box, and it's negative ionization, but it's not ionizer. Ionizer is not really good. Las Vegas, you know how you go to the casinos and it's always, like, ooh, wow, the air is, can't smell it, anything. Yeah. It's actually not healthy for the teams that have to stay there. The ionization that they have been doing for years isn't really healthy in the long term. So this negative ionization is a new thing that's in reverse of that. Because ionization is basically, by ionizing the air, like after an electrical storm, it creates the particles to be too heavy. It adheres to the ionized particles, and it makes the stuff drop. So it's not floating in the air as much. That's why you don't smell as much, and you don't catch as much smoke and things like that. Great example. But the bad part of it is that your body doesn't process ionized air, and so what you're breathing in doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't help as efficiently, and whatever else. There's a bunch of other signs to it. But this negative ionization is supposedly it sanitizes stuff. So to a point, you leave it in a room long enough, and it's relatively fast recycling time, a matter of minutes. It keeps surfaces clean, it keeps the air clean, and stuff like that. So it's supposed to be a huge thing. But I'm seeing all this stuff pop up now of all these weird tech solutions stuff. Like, okay, sure, ionizer in the room. I don't know. What do you think? Just picking stuff out of a basket here.
I don't know, but I know my mom had a negative ion machine in our house in the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, it's healthy, like being near the ocean."
You can smell them when you have. I have one in the office here. I turn it on from occasion. Ionize in a brief period is fine. It's not as if, but it's the 8 hours, 10 hours a day work shifts that it begins to have potential impact on. Just having an ionizer on. I mean, I have one of those things. Oh, by the way, did you know that the little Mr. Beck here? I can't run that anymore because it's not good for puppies or dogs.
Oh, what is it? It's not good for puppies?
The little misters that make the essential oils, certain essential oils.
Essential oils, that's right. I heard that. I did.
Yeah, I'm over here puffing away on this thing one day, and Renee looks up and she's like, I just looked that up, and what are you using? So, it's eucalyptus, and she's like, not good for Edison. And I'm like, oh, geez, okay. So poof, instant no use. Yeah, because it can I guess it can affect them because they're so, gosh knows that we got a little sniffer. He can smell anything, a peanut especially, anywhere. But anyway, all right. So I've brought my topic for a couple of things. I have more other topics, but out of deference of the courtesy of the fact that I have the privilege of your company, what do you guys want to talk about?
Well, I was just taking a quick. Robert dropped his email.
Yes, I'm looking.
Oh, did he? Did he bring up his list? Robert is so. I mean, actually, the list is phenomenal. Always is. I do truly enjoy it.
A quick scan here to see.
There was some other. Okay, here I'm going to purport something from the old list. Disney World is launching their Star Cruiser hotel for Star Wars. Totally want to go there, by the way.
Shut up and take your money.
So please, I'm on the fandom side of this, but okay, here's my logic to this, or thought process. Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, all IHG, all these hotels are floundering around trying to identify their segments of demand. They have 31 flavors and counting. They're slapping on, what is that, Convoy Bomb, that new one from that we talked about a month ago that I can't remember the name of it because it was just so catchy.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of it either. Yeah.
There it is. That's what I'm saying. It's like, who can I'm not.
Boy, that worked, right?
Yeah, that was brilliant. I can't wait until I stay at that hotel. I can't remember the name of.
It had like the 3D logo they were trying to do. That was like,
Yes, it looked like TikTok. It was.
Yeah,
I didn't want to say
yeah.
Convoy just because it was Bomboy, but whatever it was.
we still remember all that, but we still don't remember what the hell the brand was.
Just it looks like the TikTok logo. Yeah. So okay, so we have all that, right? And there will always be a functionality. I'm going from point A to point C, and I have to stay at point B somewhere. There's always going to be the need for accommodations and lodging. Got it. And like we had on the TikTok conversation, there's always different means of people to travel. Like we were talking to Delcino, there's a girl that comes with us called Stephanie Mayo. She's a huge outdoor person, huge. She runs a clubhouse just about hiking. Imagine, and she talks all about these different things that they're doing. When she's traveling like that with her fiance, it's about efficiency. I just need a place to get to sleep at night, take a bath, and then I'm out. I'm gone. That's all I need the room for. And firsthand from a New York perspective, there's a lot of hotels that you go into some of those New York hotels, like your little baby rooms in the library. Door opens, hits the bed. It's the bed in the bathroom. But that's okay because I'm not there to be at the hotel. I'm there to be in New York, and the hotel's in New York. That's what I got it for. I've got a place to sleep, and I got a place to clean up and hold my stuff that I don't.
And a lot of common space.
Yeah, and you have it. Yeah, it's not like you're just out the door and you're on the sidewalk. It's like it's just your living your space is not. Oh, let me spaciously walk between all these rooms and stuff. So there's that kind of travel, and then there's the Star Cruiser travel. Where the experience is being there. I think that brands right now, in the sense of a long-term thought, you're going to have, I think, more of a polarization similar to EU, which is the hotel's located where you're wanting to go. The service qualities are nice. The food might be nice, or at least the proximity to the other things that you want to do are nice. It's not about the brand as it is about the location, period. That's that file. Then there's I got to get me the Star Cruiser hotel. I want to geek out with cosplay. I want to walk around with a plastic lightsaber. I want to be feeling like I'm on a spaceship. The experiential destination. Okay, you're Budapest, you're Prague. That's an experience. Absolutely. You're there for as much as the place as you are where it's located. The piano, the lobby. You're just wanting to walk. I mean, it's like, yes, I'm here. Yes, I want to sit here. Yes, I want to soak this in.
Yes.
That kind of place. It's like, though, that to me, this in between stuff, I think is going to get fudged out because, I don't care if I'm at a Bomboy this or Bomboy that. To me, it's like Residence Inn. Yes, I have a long-term stay. I need accommodations that are proportionate to what I'm there for. I need a quasi cooking area. Long-term stay requirements of that, so forth. I do like convenience of breakfast in the morning if I'm there, especially for business. I want to be in and out. I don't want to have to go over and do much about that. But by the same token, I got a portable coffee maker that's the size of a thermos that if I put water in and put a little coffee puck in, it makes my coffee because I'm tired of going to a room now that they yanked the coffee machines out and I got to go trudge down in my PJs, if I'm lucky they're PJs, and get coffee in the lobby and see everybody else I didn't want to run into, especially how fun is it when you go to a conference and when you're normally all businessed out trying to meet people and you're going down there with your hair going like this, and you got shorts on that nobody should see because they're old shorts, and you're trying to get a cup of coffee. It's like, oh, hi, Bob, senior director of such and such. I was hoping to have a business meeting with today. How do you like your coffee?
You know what? I heard a hotel person describe their company as a clean, safe place to stay if you were blah, blah, blah. And I mean, why do we ever have to set such a low bar? Because there's so much we give that doesn't cost money. It's just a matter of training people to be generous. I know I'm going back to the same old thing, but that's just crazy to me. That's just crazy to me. And you know what? A lot of people, when I talk about the 5-star review system and everything, some people will say you can't elevate demand. You can only elevate your market share. And I'm sorry, but I do not find that to be true.
I've always argued that point too.
It's not true. if you have a beautiful picture that's plastered all over Instagram, because every time somebody goes there, they're taking pictures and sharing and sharing and sharing. Somebody's going to look at that picture and says, I want to be there. Where is that? Where is that? Budapest? I never thought of going to Budapest. I look at those little domes in Finland, I think it is, where you can see the aurora borealis, those little beautiful domes overlooking the sky, where your bed is just there, so you're just looking up at the stars. I don't care where that is. I'm going there. I'm not going to the area. I'm not going to look for something in the area. I just want that experience that I saw in that picture, because that's awesome.
And it's a different type of marketing, right? It's about a destination marketing where I'm going there to see you, and that's a specific agenda. That's a specific goal that I'm doing, as opposed to I'm going there to do something else, and you happen to serve the fact that I need to be there. And like Lauren was saying, I need a place to put my stuff. And when I was with Wyndham, Travelodge did a fantastic example of this as part of their branding message. Was that they're a limited service hotel, right? They're not all full service deluxe, but they were really targeting the adventure traveler, saying, hey, look, we've got locations that aren't in Manhattan. We're talking about the places that are a little bit more remote, or in kind of more, I'm going to Yosemite or something like that. And I don't want to stay in a tent. I'm not quite at that level. I want a place, that is going to be clean, comfortable. So there's different strokes for different folks, as they put it, right? Different needs for different people. That one that just needs a clean, comfortable place and the light is on for you, Motel 6, versus that one that wants to go to Finland and do that. But then I'm going there to do exactly that. So it's just understanding who you are and what is your identity, and then owning that. Don't try to be a dome in Finland if you're a Travelodge in Yosemite. It's not the same.
It's true, but even that safe place to stay can still be bursting with hospitality.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Don't forget the phrase, but don't half-ass it.
Yeah. Here's this is my best example I've ever had, and it goes back a few years. I was asked to speak in Vancouver to a ownership group that I was with, and I did the whole, at that time we called it e-commerce. That's how many years back it was. Sunshine, moon, stars, Jupiter, it's all amazing. And this really rugged guy, grizzly beard, comes out to me and says, Lauren, that was some great stuff, but I'm sad to say it ain't really going to do much for me. He was running a hotel up in Yellowknife. And if anybody's familiar with the geography of Canada, it's way up there when the place that Ice Road Truckers and all that place up there, that's where it is. It's up there. It's once you fly someplace, you got to drive someplace, fly someplace. And I mean, fly like as in seaplane, little 2-seater thing, and then hike some, it's way the heck up there. It's way up there. Anyway, he says, look, this is where the oil shale stuff was. He says, half of the year I could pitch a tent behind the hotel and sell it because they're so needing rooms. Okay. And the other half of the year, I could shoot a shotgun in any direction and not hit a dang person, because it's winter and whatever, after the oil season's over and they're gone. He says, so no matter whatever you're talking about with the marketing thing, I can't have enough hotel space for half the year, and I can't get any business the other half. And I said, well, hey, listen, thanks for listening to me. That's great. Appreciate the candor, whatever. And he says, but hey, if you ever want to come up and pick up a 20-pound bass or a 16-point buck, let me know. And I'm like, silly question. Can I get a 20-pound bass or a 16-point buck anytime during that 6 months that you don't have anybody there digging for oil? And he says, oh yeah, it doesn't really freeze over, but for 2 months out of the year or something, whatever it was, but for a few months of that time, you could do that. I said, funny that. So we found out that Japanese men love to go hunt. And so they flew into Vancouver to fly to Manitoba, to take another seaplane, to take a bus, to take another seaplane, to get up into the middle of nowhere to do exactly what he just said. So now he's not busy for only 2 months out of the year. It's the idea of what you just said, Del, is like, you can be whatever you want to be. There's somebody that wants it, as long as you put it in a way that they understand it. I can't say I can give this complete credit, but I was doing travel ads for branded hotels, and they're relatively generic, brand box hotels in a relatively mid-market area. And my travel ads initially were very similar to what you said, Adele: clean, safe, whatever. Average conversion, average cost, everything's fine. I then changed it to the friendliest team in Indy. I wanted to change to something different.
A/B testing. Yep.
Just put it up there. Whether now, not in the same time frame, it wasn't really, and to your point, Dean, not true A/B where it was both concurrently running compared to what the other ad was. I just transitioned the ad into another ad. Better conversion, better traffic. I can't say it's because of that. It could be just the time of year change difference. Okay, as people are emerging into their travel plans, it's just by the luck of the draw. But the message is to me a more welcoming message than it is about, as you said, Adele, just the functionality of we're cleaner. We're
It
cleaner
just,
safer. Okay,
that
good.
message just says, we don't care. We're just phoning it in.
Yeah. Right. And because you don't have a lot of character count when you do those ads. It's, Dean, as you well know, it's not, you can't explain the universe in 25 character line, but just being able to change the messaging to being more about what you're going to receive as experience compared to what you're going to receive as service. I think made a difference.
And imagine if they actually focused on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're probably looking at going to that and saying, okay, what do you mean by friendly, or how friendly, or because anybody can say, I'm rated number one on such and such. Yeah, your mom called in and rated you number one. Sure, of course you're number one. You're always number one to your mom.
It was frustrating to me too when I was working with MetaSearch callouts. Actually, on Google, you have little callout messages, and for the longest time, free Wi-Fi and breakfast was just the standard template that everybody had. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and now it's free cancellation, I'm like, well, so we don't have free Wi-Fi and breakfast anymore?
Yeah, that went away. Well, it's the same as color TV and heated pool. It's like, okay, good.
Yeah. So, so then you ask them, well, why am I doing that? Why am I using that free cancellation, that free Wi-Fi and breakfast? Well, because that's what everybody else is doing. Oh. Yeah. Well, look, so there was cause to change it when COVID hit. Why couldn't you have changed it 6 months before that? Whatever. But it's about understanding what are people looking for. I get it. That's why they changed it to free cancellation, because that's what everybody's looking for. But that doesn't mean you didn't have free Wi-Fi anymore. People still knew you had free Wi-Fi. So that apparently wasn't something that you absolutely had to use 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was I just looking at? Well, you know what? I'm going to come back to that. TripAdvisor. Have you ever heard of a company called Mint House Hotels? I had not. I noticed that some boutique hotel opened up in New York and became number one in New York on TripAdvisor, moving my babies down to number 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
But guess what? They were rated the number one hotel in the United States of America on the TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Awards that just came out this week.
Oh,
and guess what? Mint House has several hotels, and they all do very, very well. So take a look at that if you want to see an interesting boutique hotel brand.
Do you remember when TripAdvisor used to come out and they would say, here are the top, 25 hotels in the United States or in the world? But then they also came out and said, here were the worst ones.
I remember. They're the dirtiest ones. The dirtiest ones. That's what they came up with. And sadly, one of them was just like 2 blocks away from the Casablanca. Gosh, it was terrible. But
it was always fun to see what those were, though, and just, okay, how bad is it really? And yeah, it usually was.
Why would anyone stay there looking at those comments and those pictures that people shared?
Case in point, we talked about identities, right? And I can remember because I've worked in the reputation management space as well, and there's this one particular hotel that was really trying to promote itself as being a family-friendly establishment. And then you'd start reading the reviews, and you started to realize that it shared a parking lot with a strip club. So it's like, okay, people, that's not your identity anymore.
Oh no.
You gotta come to terms with this.
That's funny. It's funny. I'm looking, as you said, as to Robert's list to it, and it kind of lends itself to the beginning of our conversation about what is unknown and what's happening to people that influence their businesses unbeknownst to them. I noticed that Robert went on this bit of a focused dialogue about
his monologue.
His monologue. Yes, it is. It's like his monologue. It's skipping the first part about the performance against third parties. We can get to that as well, but The speed, website efficiency speed. He kind of goes to our earlier conversation about the EU and what they're not aware of, what you don't know, you don't know. This is a huge thing. I'm afraid to show this to one of my team workers because he is a militant perspective person about load speeds for websites. I mean, absolutely. The first filter of anything that a client wants to modify to their website has to get past him on what does it do to our speed. He is absolutely just, that's filter number one. Does it slow down anything? And to what Robert is pointing out, it is so incredibly true, where he points out the fact that went from a 1 to 3 second. Where is it here? I'll bring it up real quick. 1 to 3 second. Where's the cancellation of it? I'm looking for his percentages of it. If you go from 1 second to 3 second load speed, where I just saw the darn thing.
I just saw it.
If a page load increases,
page loads increase from 1 second to 3 seconds, bounce rate increases 32%.
Yep.
If load time increases from 1 second to 6 seconds, bounce rate increases by 106%.
So
Wow.
if you don't load, and remember, mobile's first. If you don't load in less than 6 seconds, you're almost guaranteed they don't stay.
Interesting.
So going to the European discussion, a lot of, and we know this to be true, especially with the fact it's not brand and not on a mothership and all this other stuff. A well-intended person, from whoever it is, has a nice picture of their hotel or a nice aspect of their hotel or whatever picture of it is, and they innocently load it or give it to be loaded onto their website to represent them. Without proper technology and focus, inadvertently, it just might simply be loaded at its full value of file size. Mm-hmm. Anything over 55 kilobytes takes over a second to load, just that one picture. When you add everything else that the website is doing, if you add everything else that it's trying to load, if you add the tracking codes and you add all that stuff in, you add 1 more second to that. Let's just say everything else loaded wonderfully well at 2 seconds. If you added just that one picture inadvertently and added that extra second, you've lost a third of your traffic from that simple single mistake.
So I was always told you have to put in high resolution images.
Sure.
And you have to worry about your speed time. So how can you have high resolution images and keep it 55 KB?
I'm glad you asked. Compression. The resolution is based on density per pixel, and that density per pixel, it can be calculated to the reuse of a particular pixel in similarity to other pixels, so that once the software compression realizes the similarities between, it doesn't have to keep repeating the reminder of what this pixel counts for. It's the same as this other pixel. So it's like you rewriting chapter 1 in a book for 10 chapters before you get to chapter 2. It's the same chapter, but because it's for 10 different places, you keep repeating the chapter. The compression says this pixel is this combination. And because of all, it looks at the whole image and says how many other pixels are similar to that. Hey, Stephanie. And because of that, it doesn't have to keep as much data stored about the image. So you can take a high resolution picture, say it's a 2.2 megabyte picture, and bring it down to 55 kilobytes by the compression. Now, yes, there is potential, and in some cases there is reduction in resolution to it. But when you start talking about screen size, that is indiscernible variation, because you're not really, because of the size requirement of the image, it's not needing all of the, it's like taking a wall mural and making it the size of a postage stamp. And if you don't compress it, you're taking all that colors into a small space. You can't tell the difference anymore. But if you just reduce the similarities, the quality is still as excellent as it is as a wall picture in the same size as the screen. You just can see it because it's on in the same size screen.
So let's say my content manager says put things in that are 5 MB to 10 MB or something like that. Is that wrong? Or is it, and then from that library, I can I can put the picture in the spaces where I want it from the library. So is it compressing it for me, or
Yes.
it is?
It will be for when you use it for your site. Here's the rationale. If you've ever taken a picture that is small and you try to blow it up big, it gets what we refer to as pixeled. It gets very grainy, gritty. It is way harder to take a small picture and make it bigger, and way easier to make a big picture and make it smaller. Because when you ask clients and anybody, give me your best resolution picture, you're getting the best B-roll you can. You're getting the best image you have. That stays on file. That gets held in your media library of your website in there, okay? What your website needs to use it for, it needs to compress it so it keeps that demand on the loading of the website to an absolute minimum. So you want to take the best quality you have and load it so that it can be used for the most quality reduction of its usage. If you give a terrible resolution or poor resolution or a small file size, should it need to expand that image because of the screen that's being used for you, that's when you get the really crappy looking pictures. Like,
So we should ask our website development company to check, that they're compressing it enough.
well, you can do it yourself, but yes, any good website, anybody that's handling your website for you that you're paying them to do, this is table stakes. This is what you do regardless. I mean, this is a fundamental function of making websites is load time. Here, I'm going to give you a link.
But I feel like everybody says that they have great load time, but obviously load times must be different for different hotels.
Oh,
So the hotelier is probably not probably just telling them, hey, put this picture on. They're probably themselves using the content manager to make changes on their website. So we need to know what to ask them for, or what, be able to test ourselves so that we know whether they're doing a good job or whether it's time to switch to another company that is capable of doing a better job.
There's lots of, depending upon the platform that your website is built on, there's a tremendous amount of plugin tools or functions that will automatically compress your website. Keep in mind two major criteria. One is everything is built for mobile first, because 66% now is actually mobile-based search query on it. So everything has to fit mobile. Mobile load speed, mobile load time is critical. And being that you're a combination between Wi-Fi and or cellular service, even with 5G being a predominant thing that's coming into market, you're slow, you're going to lose the numbers like Robert's pointing out. I sent a link in there. If you want to test your website, you just put your website in and Google will tell you how fast it is on mobile, just like what Robert did. It'll show you what you show up as, your speed factor. And it's amazing all the stuff that your website tries to load and in what sequence. It's really scary, Adele, when it comes to little simple things that knowledge wins. If you put your tracking codes in your header versus your footer, it can make a huge half-second difference or more. And it sounds weird that a half-second would be considered huge. But in this load time world that we're living in, if one function requires a half a second to do, you see the numbers. If it gets past the 3-second mark, you're losing a third of your traffic, not because they're not interested in what you might have to say. They have no patience in waiting. And if it's over 6 seconds, you're almost guaranteed that nobody's really lingering. You have to really want that content to sit there and wait past that moment.
So you're saying make sure that your tracking is in your footer.
No, actually, it's better if you have a GTM shell to be in your header. If you don't have a GTM shell, it should be better in your footer, because you want your website to render mobile first, faster, so people don't leave, to then allow your tracking to account for it. You want, with GTM, it's only one code. If you have it in your header, then it will immediately load so that you know what people interacted with as the site loads afterwards, because it's such a fractional negative impact on your speed load with it being just one code. Because in that GTM shell, the Google Tag Manager shell, all your other codes are triggering. So it's not slowing down your website. That's why GTMs were created. You started adding all these pixels of tracking and advertisement platforms and all this other stuff. It was slowing down people's website because it had to try to load all these things up before it got to all the rest of your website. So if you don't have GTM, loading it in the footer is better because you're not sacrificing the users of exposure to your website before you're getting your tracking. I would recommend that everybody use GTM shells because then you're on top and you get the information. So
it's so much easier.
Right. So it's these little things, but this goes back to our first part of the conversation with the European communities that unless they're in tune with this, no GM of a hotel is going to even know to ask this. No, somebody comes in saying, well, your website's really terrible. We want to fix this for you. They're kind of blind as to what they even know what that means. What does that mean? I'm going to get a better website. What are you putting on there for content? How does that work with Google zero clicks where, was it 60? It's in the 60 percentile, Dean. Maybe you have the better number than me. People don't even go to a website anymore. They get their answer from Google. Okay. That answer box, it's called Google zero or no click. They're getting their answer to their question and they're not going to anything below it, us. Okay. So unless your website is really the one that's being used in that answer box, you might have missed a full-blown opportunity of them coming to your website just because you weren't the authority on answering that question. And that comes from your data. So,
do you have a video in any of the podcast episodes or video episodes where you show people how to enter that schema?
I do, probably somewhere. I mean, I don't know about videos. You know what, Melissa, you're in there. She just gave us 65% is Google's there. See, it was 60 something. I knew it was 60 something. Melissa probably,
65% zero click. Wow.
Yeah. That's the Google stuff. That's where they go and don't even go to a website. They just go to the answer box, get their answer for the query and move on. And yes, it does go to somebody's website, but it's the authoritative website for that question. So if you're not in that scheme, as you said, but, I'll dig it back up. If anything, Melissa, I'll just drag you into the conversation. Maybe we can do this next week, next Friday or something.
Drag you in.
Yeah, drag you. Just when they're out, they drag me back in. And get her into maybe talk a little bit more about schema because there's hospitality schema, there's hotel schema, there's restaurant schema, there's a lot of fractional schema pieces that help with this, but being that it may, schema isn't the key solution to the Google zero click either. It's a function of it, but it's really about the content and content relevancy. It's about whether the content is actually on your site, not just whether you are indicating or identifying data that's related to it. It's about the value. Do people find what the content is most relevant? So, yeah. Thank you.
By the way, I also hear people bragging about their quick websites, but then I go to some of their agencies' websites and the websites are so boring. I can't even imagine having it attract me. I think that it's got to be a balance between some kind of functionality and some kind of emotional impact that you have.
It is. The funny part.
I don't want to see the exterior of your hotel unless you're showing me the pool and the ocean and the golf course.
And even then, go ahead, Dean. Go ahead.
I was just saying, and that's why a lot of them, you see, they'll create secondary pages. So my home page, I've got to have it load light speed, right? But I can have a buried page under that, a sub page that now has some of my heavier content that maybe doesn't load as quickly.
Right, and keep in mind too is that with the websites, the speed load effect. The funny part was somebody went over and actually in Europe made a completely optimized for machine learning website that was going to be the El Primo site for content related to the topic that they had. If you looked at it as a human, you thought it was the most gibberish page in the world. Totally non-user interface because it was so created in such a way to be so optimized for so many particular aspects that machine learning uses that a human would never use that page. It was a gibberish of stuff because based on href tags, meta tags, reference canonical linkings, all this kind of stuff, it was useless to a UI. So to your point, Adele, there's a balance between the value of the UI, which is the first thing you should be most concerned about, that yes, speed load is critical. Yes, indexing is critical. But if the person gets there in spite of all that success and doesn't find it to be what they're interested in, they go away.
Yeah.
So it has to be, as you pointed out, Dean, once they're there, you have the ability to navigate, help them navigate what it is that might be the next thing they need to be considering or
But you
more.
know what? I'm never going to get to that second page if I see an ugly first page.
Right. And that's the
right.
thing.
I'm not.
It has to be, and that's why it's so critical. Like you pointing out pictures of pools and so forth, I would add to it depending upon, and this is where it comes to dynamic content and this other stuff. I like pictures of pools with people. I don't want the static, totally pristine, sterile view. I want what does it look like? People, because a picture tells 1,000 words. Is there families in the picture? Is it mixed ethnicities? Because those things are important to me. I don't want a bunch of glamorous. If they're going to be people in like, oh, cocktail, it's an actress. There's places and time for those kinds of pictures. I'm not throwing those out the door. But when it comes to general engagement, it should be about what people are interested in, why they're looking at you. And that's where and it goes to another thing too. And that is websites are not just a single port of entry anymore. We used to think of it as come to my homepage, and it's still a critical component of navigation. But so much of what we can do can bring them into deeper links. Google has stopped penalizing us to do deep links. Used to be if I was bringing them to a subpage of a subpage, Google will say that's not as important of a page as it is your index page. Google has stopped that. What they've said is the content on a page is the critical component of that page. Even if it's 15 layers deep, which is bad, it's still, that's where we're sending people. That goes into the zero-click stuff. So your depth of content is as important. And to your point, Adele, it has to be where the user's looking at it going, that's what I want. That's what
they're like, oh, I could just imagine myself there. Wouldn't that be delicious? That's what I want to feel.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was watching something in the past week. I don't want to say the name of the show I was watching, but very popular hospitality show. And somebody was saying, oh, I never knew that you should always take pictures of your hotel without any people in it because having people in it dates it. Guess what? You got to take new pictures anyway. You've got to spend the money or make a trade for it or something because it's too important. There is nothing worse than looking on a hotel website, seeing a room look like whatever, and realizing when you get to the hotel that that's what the rooms look like 15 years ago. You know what? Photography changes as technology changes, and that picture just doesn't look fresh anymore.
Pictures. We have some stigmas about imagery for hotels. And I think it goes back to how we have progressed in marketing for hotels. This is my personal opinion about this. Having lived through the transition of internet being introduced into hospitality back in the 90s, okay, because I was running hotels in the 90s, and it was like, oh, everybody needs a website. And I remember to this day making a website for my Hilton, and it was literally a tiled website where I only had a certain logo. I literally took a picture of it, loaded the picture up, and because it wasn't a big enough picture and there was no tools at the time to change picture sizes, the only option was fill to screen or make as a tile. So my background was literally my logo over and 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 over in the background. And there was no booking engine link. There was no nothing. It was our address, our name, and I had another picture of the outside because it was what we had of the porte cochere and the building. And that was our picture in the middle, and this little square tile with a tile. It was the most horrendous, godforsaken thing you can imagine, but that's what we had. And I had a website. I didn't have an email address even. We didn't have an email back then. It was Yahoo or whatever it was.
AOL or CompuServe.
Oh, CompuServe. That's what I had. I had CompuServe. So
I interned at a desk back in the 90s.
Yeah. So this imagery that we had was brochure-esque. And what you pointed out earlier, Del, we were setting rates for, we had a rate card. This was our rates. This was our spring rate. This was our, fall rate. This was our corporate rate.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was like 5 categories of rates maybe and seasonal rate. And it was a rate card. And all the information was on it. And the phone number was the big deal. And of course, you had to be in the hotel book because if you weren't in the hotel book, nobody even knew you were a hotel, for God's sakes. You had to pay a lot of money to be in that book. Anywho, our thought processes of images did not evolve quickly from that perspective. we still saw photography as brochure-based photography. And
Yeah.
that's when the argument that you're saying, Adele, like, oh, you're going to date yourself. Because when you printed out 2,000 brochures for your sales team and your front desk people, that stuff had to last for a
10,000.
while. And you didn't want bouffant hair when bouffant hair went out of style 6 months or a year after you had still 1,000 brochures to dump. You know, you just didn't want the, oh, yeah, we renovated our lobby and you're looking at the old pastel 80s, you know, look, and we're now the new 90s look. You didn't want that because you knew there was always transitions that happened. We never got off of that for the photography. And then we went into, from the internet perspective, we went into the self-absorbed photography. We came from, I did, the age where when you had a camera, you had film. If you want to take a picture, it better be dang worth the film, because it wasn't like, oh, take a picture to remember that, like we do now. It's like, oh, that's the picture I want. And because you only had, you know, a dozen pictures or 24 pictures, or if you're really rich, you had 36 pictures on it, and it was slides or prints or whatever, and you went to the Photoshop to get it developed. It had to be worth something.
I have to tell you a story about that, because you were very careful about what you took a photo of. And there was one particular trip I was on. I was down in Cabo San Lucas, and if everybody has been there, you know there's Land's End down there, right? This is kind of one of the attractions. And if you've ever looked on top of Land's End from ground level, you can see way at the top there's a cross up there. Okay, so I, being the guy that I was, decided I was going to climb up to there. And I did. And so on my climb up there, of course, I took several really fantastic pictures, right? They're all beautiful. I get to that cross. I finally worked my way. By the way, I'm not sure you're supposed to go there. Just putting that out there. But as I get up there, there is this large bird. I don't know what kind of bird it was. I'm into like buzzard-sized bird sitting on one edge of the cross with its wings out, this huge wingspan. And this is a National Geographic photo moment we're talking about. And I pull out my camera and there's none left.
No film. Yeah. People nowadays have no idea what that is. I mean, even we went through the transition of, even after that, and we got into digital photography, was the capacity of the discs that we used. Oh, we could only take so many discs because the pictures were so. We've gone through that. Now we have cloud-based. We can be just like, you know, I take pictures of stuff just to remember the notes. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, click.
It's my notebook.
It's It's
Are you at a conference? Amazing. A screenshot of the screen that's up there. Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I gotta remember that click. The usage of photography has, we as an industry have not changed in that perspective. And another generation we went through was the self-absorbed. Here's what I'm eating. This is me eating it. This is me where I'm at eating it. This is me in this place I'm eating at it. We took pictures that were of other things. Very rarely did we set up the camera, because it was a real pain in the butt to be sitting somewhere that we had to hit the button and run over real quick to sit in front of it, because it was going on a timer. You know, where you hit the timer on the camera and it had like 3 or 5 seconds before it took the picture, and you wanted to be in the picture, so you had to run over and like act like you're, you know, those are gone too. So even when we took pictures of ourselves, it was really arduous to do. Now it's constantly self-absorbed. We have a term now, selfies, that didn't exist back then. We didn't talk about that. The point I'm making about the photography is the methodology of photography for hotels is still based in that time frame. Oh, we're building it. The hotel's almost done now. We're ready to take our photo shoot. Our photo shoot, you know, and it's perfectly staged lobby, perfect bouquet, polished surfaces, pristine everything. Don't let anybody in the picture, because we have to take a picture of our lobby. And it's like, I understand, that's great. It's a moment in time. That's our lobby. Don't use that for advertising all the time. That is not an advertising piece. That is I bought the place, I built the place, I paid for the place, I want a picture of the place. That's what those pictures are for. Porte-cochere pictures, another one of those ones. Nobody cares about the porte-cochere except for the guy that built it or bought it. Pool, same thing. Rooms. I mean, you do need, now I'll take rooms out of that equation. There are some places that bare rooms, pristine, perspective of them is good because of business sales and group sales. Like, this is our room. This is our queen room. This is our double bedroom. This is our king room.
Absolutely.
You don't need somebody plopping or bouncing on the bed to go over and take that picture. Got you on that. And this is our banquet room, facility.
Beaches would be the other one I would put in that category, because people like to picture themselves on this pristine.
That's my beach.
beach.
Yes, that's my
Yes.
yes.
It never is, but that's how we
Right.
want to visualize it, right?
Hence where Oyster came from initially was the,
Oh.
oh yes, that picture they took
Yeah.
of you. Yeah, they took that building out of the image and they took this out of the image and yeah, all that other stuff. But yes, it is that. And they backfired because, some places in Italy, especially, oh, this is your beach in in Italy. And the reality is the beach is never empty. As a matter of fact, you can't get on the beach because there's just too many people, So it's about truth in the advertising, but it's also about the flexibility of it. As you pointed out, Dale, you want people that you relate to in the images. You want to be seeing people experience what you want to experience. And so because of that, you need to be able to change up your photography. And now we have the real world of videography. We need those excerpts. We need those pieces. And the thing is that you're not going to be bringing in a crew with heavy hot lights and staging and nobody getting near the pool and all the guests are going, what the hell? I paid to be here. And you're telling me I can't go to the pool because you want to take a picture of a video of it. Oh, that's the hell no. I'm going to go on TripAdvisor and bash the crap out of you. So you need
do it at 6 a.m.
Yeah. It's something. But the other is that you need to solicit your team because everybody sees something like you said with the condor on the cross thing. Everybody has those moments where it's like, oh my God, how beautiful it is. I still remember this day. There was a bellman at Jupiter Beach Resort, and he'd been there for 30 some odd years. The place has been around forever, and he knew everything there was to do. And he strolled out to take care of the beach chairs, as he always did. And it just happened that was the last space shuttle launch of the time or whatever like this, and he caught the moment where the sun was coming up. Okay, water was pristine, beach was pristine. And you saw the arc of the shuttle going up, and he got this amazing picture. And for nothing more, we just shared it. But it's like, wow, that was great people loved it. It was just one of those. He wasn't the photographer we hired. He wasn't the GM that, I got to take pictures today of stuff. He was the dude that said, wow, hold on, click. And then just had the courtesy of sharing it with us and was like, it was one of those pictures that people just thought was amazing. I think it got picked up in some news magazines even. It was just one of those pictures of here's Florida, East Coast, and Jupiter Beach got resort credit for it. That it was because of him. I mean, he got his name on it too, but it really helped us. I mean, from, that's our view, folks. Come on over. That's what we see, stay here. That was the big message of it. So yeah, it's important for those things.
Some employee at Disney took a picture that had like Cinderella's castle and the NASA launch behind it or something crazy like that. Cool. And they sent it to Dan Cockrell, who was an executive there, and he sent it to one of the people in the ship, and they just thought that was just amazing. And it's just being at the right place at the right time is so phenomenal. And what our phones can do is amazing.
Yeah.
Those websites that have the exterior of a simple, limited, service kind of hotel, just if your hotel looks just like about 1,000 other hotels, maybe the exterior is not the hero shot. Maybe it's the lovely lobby and all the sitting space that you can imagine yourself cozy by that fire. Maybe it's something on the garden where you have a fire pit, and maybe it's a pool or something else, something that has greenery and flowers or whatever. But that plain building is not usually the thing that's going to emotionally move a customer to book. And I just wonder why so many people choose it when I know they have more beautiful pictures.
Yeah. I know the answer to that, actually. And you're absolutely right. That's probably not the ideal one to be using. But the reason that they're putting that in there is because most distribution channels that you work with, be it GDS, OTAs, or other, that is a requirement, is that you submit at least one external photo of the hotel.
I submit an external photo, but it's not the first one. It's not my primary. No way, no.
That doesn't mean it has to be your primary. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's an evolution of process too. I mean, we all know Henry Woodman with Ice Puddle before, joined, was it? I forget where he joined, but anyway.
I talked to him in ages.
Shinzu or whatever it is. Yeah.
CG. Yeah.
Shiji. And there is classifications, room shots, exterior
Sure.
shots, pool shot,
Yeah.
kind of thing. We still, and again, the modality of it. And to your point, Adele, I think one of the most touching pictures I had that we had used was our front desk staff with a genuine laugh in front of a guest who was genuinely laughing. And
That's
it was a
wonderful.
snapshot picture. And
Love
that got most engagement because it showed a truism to, we don't know what they're laughing about. We don't know, but it definitely did not look contrived. Like when you have a server picture going, it's like, okay, take 25 was it?
Human beings taking care of other human beings is something that everybody can get behind.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that is marketable. That's the marketing mess. Because the part that we're trying to translate, unfortunately, is marketing historically, print media and so forth, was about how compressed you could create your messaging in the most action pace because you had to pay for the space, bar inches and all the other stuff in printing. And so it got very compressed. It was all about impact. Buy now, click now, deal now, it's going to expire now, whatever. And we never transitioned from it to be experience driven. And the cool part about what's happened this past year is people have taken, for lack of, whether it was forced or not, time. They've taken more depth of time. We used to do with a 7-second rule. If you didn't get their attention in 7 seconds, you lost them. We know speed of website is still there. That's not the question. But it is messaging of what we do in marketing that's important. And from this medium, we still translate the printing idea of that we have to, the image is a accessory to the message when the image can be the message. Instead of a picture of our hotel with the offer under it, which is the generic BS way that most people do ads, sometimes the image is the sell and the message is just the affirmation of what to do about it. And this nuance of marketing strategies is not everybody does it. It's really weird. And this goes to a little bit of what Manuel had mentioned earlier, the humanization of knowing the industry, knowing that this resonates with people because this is what you do daily, listening to people, responding to people, offering services to people is how marketing works well too. Of what do you need to know more about? How can I tell it in a way that you understand it, rather than the contrived, not empathetic way of, well, we got that special offer, let's put that up there, rate and date, and not wonder why it's not resonating or selling as well as the hotel down the road. That's like, smiley people, come join us, have some fun. Here's what we're currently offering. And that resonates so much better with people. That difference in marketing is profound in lots of ways.
It's helpful to look at the comments on the chat, what they're asking, because sometimes you can very easily figure out when maybe we have that information on the website, but it's not in a place where people are seeing it easily.
And it goes back to, I'm sorry. It also goes back to listening to your own people. What are people asking for? What are they asking about? What is it you're constantly having to talk about or share? If they're always asking about the biggest ball of twine around the corner, why aren't we talking about it?
Yeah,
you're going to make me give credit to Stuart Butler here. I have to do.
Stuart, he's left us. He's now so important in the world.
He has often brought up an excellent point of why don't we have search bars on our website to search the content on our website, because A, they can find it, and B, you know what they're looking for.
But you know what we got out of Stuart leaving us is we got Melissa, which is, I think, a step up. I'm just saying, Stuart's now super important, and maybe he'll bless us with his presence for once in a while, but we got Melissa now. So, Melissa, we're really happy you stepped up with this. Okay. Thank you. But anywho's, out of all the stuff that Robert threw us, I mean, he has his boop and all this other stuff to it. I'm feeling, me personally, I mean, the CDC guidelines that just rolled out, politically motivated or not, I'm happy with the fact that if it's an opening a doorway to help promote more people take the vaccination, I hope it is true. I hope it solicits people to do that. I know there's going to be a whole lot of polarization that we're not familiar with yet that's going to come around about, what do you mean I have to get a vaccination passport? Or we already have a governor here in Florida that says I'm going to fine anybody that tries to enforce it. We got this whole polarization stuff that's going on. But if this opening of opportunity of, I don't want people walking around asking, where's your card? Don't get me wrong. I'm not that kind of person that, I want people. I got to put a badge on that says, hey, I have my vaccination. Although I do want to get a T-shirt. I think I want to sell T-shirts. I'm vaccinated. Leave me alone. I'm thinking there's a market there. Me as a marketer thinking there's a market.
Actually, I do like that the more I think about
it. Right? It grows on you. If you think about it, answers a lot of questions. But anywho, I do hope it inspires people to take vaccinations that may have been on the fence with waiting. Excuse me. Sorry. Thank you. But by the same token, I do think that there should be some sort of level of requirement. We talked about, and actually you were there, Dean, we were talking about the possibility of grown prejudices where like EU is saying, hey, all fully vaccinated people can come travel with us. Yet maybe their own population hasn't been able to get their vaccination yet. And now you're going, oh yeah, you can walk around all day. I can't get out of my dang house because I don't get vaccinated, but because you all sucked up the vaccinations, go travel,
Here's another real world example. Actually, in fact, I'm going to pose this out there as a problem that I'm facing. In fact, we're trying to plan a little family reunion. And for those that don't know, I come from a very small town up in Northeast Nebraska. Now, me and my family, well, not my kid, but we've had all our shots, double vaccinated, done all that stuff, right? My mother has done it. My brother has done it. My sister, we've all done this. Little small town up there in Oswin, Nebraska, though, because, and not trying to pound them into the ground or anything. In fairness to them, during this whole thing, they've had like 4 cases of COVID. So they're kind of like, So nobody up there has been vaccinated. A lot of these are farmers who've been social distancing for 30 years. They're like, well, what's the big deal? Right? This is what I do. So in their minds, this is like, why would I do this? And I get it. I understand their logic and reasoning behind that. But now I'm supposed to go up there for a family reunion. And I'm a little iffy about that. I'm like, well, I get why they didn't, but I did. And there's a reason I did. And so how do you intermingle the two? I don't know the answer.
I've seen in Facebook a lot of questions like that. And it's okay, 2 sides to my opinion. Adele, please, I'm sorry. I'm jumping in first on this one, is that the idea that you've been vaccinated is, in fairness, probably one of the more, you're protected. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're concerned about the exposure to them having not been protected from the beginning vaccination, and maybe saying that to them is like, look, I would love to see. I'm not worried about catching something from you, but do understand I see more people than you. So all the argument logic that you had of I don't see people, I'm not around people, I don't need to worry about it. I'm bringing that to you. I'm literally coming to you from having been exposed to all those people, and I may be asymptomatic, or if you don't understand that verbiage of it, I can carry this stuff. Okay. And my kids can carry this stuff, and you might get sick from us. And we don't want that to happen to you, but we don't want to wear masks when we've done all these precautions, but we will if we feel that that's a safety precaution that you just proved not to take this. The second argument I'll make to this is I don't go and get a car accident and then now I wear a seatbelt. I wear a seatbelt, so if I'm in a car accident, I'm safe. I take a vaccination, not because I got sick, but I took a vaccination so I don't get sick and potentially don't convey sickness. It doesn't stop it, but hopefully that I don't share that with anybody else by not getting sick myself, even though I can still carry it. So I take safety precautions to avoid have something should bad happen. That's why I took vaccinations. You choosing not to do that is like saying, I don't care about riding around without a seatbelt. I'll take my risk. That's great. But now I'm telling you, don't put your seatbelt on, is by me showing up, by bringing whatever I have. So if they're okay with it, you don't want to have, you can tell, I don't want to be on my conscience. You're going to get sick, you could possibly die. And because you found out I'm the one that lugged it up with me, holy shit, you want me to carry that burden around for the rest of my life? Go get a freaking shot. What is it? You freaking change out plow gear on the back of a farm animal thing while it's flipping around at 1,000 miles an hour. What's the hell is the deal about getting a shot? Anyway, that's me.
Yeah. I wonder how many more people in the US are going to get shots at this point. Just seems like
I want to go to Ohio. I'm doing the lottery. Do you see that? The lottery for the vaccinated people? I think it's Ohio.
Yes.
$1 million for I'm like, yeah.
I would have broken up into 50 $100,000 prizes.
Maybe I've just, to me, it's like, yeah, that's brilliant. From our market, in our industry perspective right now, we're in a bit of a challenge. How would you feel if, when making a reservation at a hotel, we've had this conversation months ago, before all this started rolling out, how would you feel if the hotel told you, I'm sorry, we're requiring all of our guests to wear a mask? Because still, with the CDC guidelines, businesses can require a mask, and that is enforceable. If
Yeah,
and we
that's
see
the
it in the news
prerogative
down
to do.
here,
And
we
I
had a
think
guy
that's
that was
what we-
arrested,
Yeah.
because he went into a retail place that mandated masks, and he was the first person that refused to leave when he asked to wear a mask, and so he was literally arrested, and he got fined a serious chunk, and he's in jail for a couple of weeks. I'm happy because the owner stuck to his ground and said, this is our requirement. He has all the reasons in the world, whether they're, he had the justification. He lost somebody due to COVID, so he was that adamant about it. But even if he didn't, if it was just out of the demand that he wanted that's his right as a business owner.
Yeah, but he owned it one way or another. Own it either, yes, this is it. Or if you're on the other side of that fence, Ed has said this many times, if you're on the other side of the fence that, nope, I'm not going to require it, well, okay, own that. But either way, own it.
Yeah. So now, how a hotel is going to handle this, that they want to maintain those standards for now, given the fact that we are not at any sort of herd immunity. We're just basically loosening up the restrictions to, less people whine about it, I guess, and maybe solicit more vaccinations. How would you feel about a hotel saying, look, we mandate this? Are they jeopardizing their potential business when business is so demanding? Or, taking advantage of the fact that, hey, if you want to stay with us, this is our rule. If you don't want to stay with us, good luck finding a place. But that's our rule.
But you know what?
Some
How hard
places
is it
could
to
get
force
away
this
with
thing?
that, but if a hospital can't claim that 100% of their staff is vaccinated, how can we expect that from others?
I agree with you. It's kind of weird you say bring up hospitals for it, because you would think from first blush that people medically knowledgeable would understand the perspective of vaccination. Like, why would you think this? And then the advocates of not getting vaccinated say, look at these people in the hospital. They should know better, and they're not doing it. We're not accounting for, I think, three things out of that. One is some people have conditions that they just don't want to jeopardize themselves with. Sorry, I have a condition that I don't know how I react to certain things, or they do, in fact, know they react to certain things, and vaccinations of this type or method or whatever puts them in jeopardy. That's one that we don't even know. Okay. The second of it is that some of them in there, they do know the mathematical systems associated with vaccinations and just want to literally wait out what the metrics are about the vaccination cycle.
Sure.
And I understand the legitimacy as well. And there's pregnancies. People aren't quite completely clear, and there's no real medical data yet to show how this all works in scale about pregnancies and the reaction of what it creates for it. Understand that as well. I'm not like everybody must and they're so stupid not to. I think there's justifiable concerns from people's perspectives on some things, but to use that perspective of, well, medical people aren't doing it, why should I do it, is not a fully informed perspective on it, because there are mitigating circumstances to it that we just don't take into account. And again, it's about trying to find the reasons to justify. I think there's two types of people. There's the people that find all the reasons in the world why they're right, and they listen to only the things that justify their perspective. And there's other people, and there's fewer of them, unfortunately, that try to find all the reasons why they're wrong until they find out that they are right by doing that. And
there's also really false information out there. I mean, I've seen the most insane.
Did you see that thing that did in the news? Did you see the thing that did in the news? They created two new Facebook accounts, as the news agency did. I think it was somewhere in New York, actually. And one followed articles related to basically pro-Biden, just things about Biden, okay? And the other one basically followed things about pro-Trump, just to see, okay? Brand new Facebook things. That's the only thing they did. They didn't follow people. They followed conversations. And what they were doing was proving the biasness of the algorithm. We all know that Facebook, as an example of a platform, the algorithm is to show you more of what you're interested in. That's what it's supposed to do. Right. Is, okay, if you're interested in this, then you must want to see more of this. Within 48 hours, the biasness that was created in those news feeds was profound.
Sure. Yeah.
Profound. Things were recommended for you. In the Trump thing was about, liberals being communists and and in all fairness, both sides, and the Democrats, the negative conservatism, the negative this. I'm not trying to be political about it, but that is
absolutely do. Yeah,
it is very much about that, because I know I follow recipe stuff all over the place. And okay, truth be told, my Facebook page is a lot about recipes and comics. Just so you know. Pearls Before Swine, Bloom County. I get everybody's.
And mentions of this show.
And this, yeah, right, and food recipes and this and that and Dutch food and Indonesian food. I'm like, because it's like, oh, you like this stuff. Here's something more recommended. So I've created my echo bubble. The danger then, they showed this in the news article, was you begin to think these niche dialogues are mainstream conversation because the frequency it shows up. You think a lot of other people are thinking like you or wanting what you have, and so it justifies your perspective even more, because they were talking about the weaponization of data. Families that are separated because they think their parents or their kids are trying to influence their political perspective based on the polarity of what they're getting in their social media feeds. It's really scary, because we use it as a marketing tool, obviously. Oh, you like this stuff, let me give you more of it. But in reality, it's really harmed some of our culture as well, because we've created this, if you're not with us, you're against us mentality. And it's like, no, we just disagree about this thing, and it's okay to disagree about this thing. Right. We're still human beings, still living in the same space, still doing the other stuff. Why are we so much on the opposite side of this? So.
It is amazing, actually. By the way, I'm registered as an independent, so I don't consider myself necessarily one or the other. I do lean one side a little bit more than the other, but generally the risk of being an independent is now I equally offend both my conservative and liberal friends all the time.
Exactly.
Equal opportunity isolationist. There you go.
If you comment on one of them, oh my gosh, they just gangbust you on, and it goes both ways. I'm not picking on one over the other. It goes on both sides of that if you do not fall into their belief system, that you must be Satan. I mean,
my family on both sides of the family, just the whole gamut, extremes and everything in between. So I'm not in a pure bubble. I can definitely say that. Yeah. Anyway, my dog is begging me for a walk.
Yes. We got to go. We're past our time, and honestly, thank you. I mean, we sometimes have 10 talking heads. There's this, but every day, it's truly a joy to be able to just. It still is for me therapy. Honestly, it is. It's I don't get to see people in person as much, even though now, given past vaccinations and so forth, we have more of an opportunity. But there's still a hesitancy, and I'm not traveling. I do hope that there come times where you get to go do big bear huggy, happy to see yourself.
September.
Yeah, I really am putting a stick in the sand about Dallas. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to do any sessions there. I think I'm just going to be group hugging everybody all day. But the fact that maybe trying to do the end of September for HSMA, the events, and also high tech would be wonderful. We can all kind of cross paths there. But in the meanwhile,
to all the vendors out there planning to be at those things, I expect major booth swag. Just putting that out there.
We're talking about iPads. We're talking, just throw out the goodies, because
I'm a sucker for
I'll
t-shirts.
be really interested in your product, regardless what it is, if it's good swag. All right, Adele, for people who want to know more about you, where you are, and all that kind of goes, how can you contact you? Where can they find you?
Visit me at adelegutman.com to find the Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast. Get great reviews. We have a new episode coming out, don't we, Lauren? Excellent. So there should be one coming out very shortly, which is a wonderful interview with Jeffrey Kulik, the GM of the London Hotel in West Hollywood. It was really inspiring, and I know you'll enjoy that as well as the other. And if you need any help with getting great reviews and boosting your revenue and your employee satisfaction and guest satisfaction all in one simple system, call me.
Perfect. Mr. Dean, for all things amazingly wonderful, where is it they can find you, and what is it you do, and all that kind of cool stuff?
So basecampmeta.com, finding your way, and metasearchmarketing.com, plugging you in. I got to get those taglines right. Educating about metasearch, as well as, either you need to learn how to do it or you want somebody to do it for you, one of those two categories. And also got some new podcasts that'll be coming out. Also working on an article in conjunction with HSMAI. Everybody talks about Google as the big metasearch channel and so forth. What about the rest of them? What about all the other guys? And especially as you start getting into South America and APAC and Europe and so on, And so working with them, I actually did some research and put together a list of who are the other ones that you need to know about, what are their demographics, why are they important or not important, depending upon where you're at. And we'll be, there's an article coming out in conjunction with HSMAI, hopefully next week, Friday, in time for this show.
Perfect.
And you have an HSMA presentation in Hawaii.
That's true. And you know what? I have to,
Next week, right?
Coming up fairly soon here.
Thank you,
I
Deb,
have
for
a
keeping track of
presentation
Dean's
for
apparent lack of
HSMA
remembering his schedule.
Wisconsin on Monday. So join me.
Laura, that's why I have a calendar.
Adele, the director of events for Dean.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Well, Dean is a great supporter, so I have to appreciate him anyway.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And for that matter, I better take care of it for what I have to do Tuesday morning, or my Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon EU time. I will be doing another presentation with Remy out of London. I think he's in Spain, and we're going to be talking about a brand. And well, we were going to talk about loyalty. Now we're going to talk about digital distribution and branding and so forth. So it should be a fun conversation for it. As always, and Stephanie, since you are here, I'm not cheating on you about our Clubhouse versus this show. This show is first, but it's cool that we can do the same thing in Clubhouse. But Stephanie Mayos is joining us. It's with us Clubhouse. We do Clubhouse at noon every Monday through Thursday. For those who have the app, and even if you have Android, you can be on it now because it just rolled out the Android thing. So whether you're iOS or Android, you can join it. It's fun. It's like a quasi podcast conference combination where you get to just listen if you want to, but you can participate if you want to. And we do solicit participation. It's an open forum discussion, and it's really as open as this conversation, wherever the directions may lie. So we have that. We also do this show every Friday, of course. We'll be in show 302 next week, 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time. My podcast rolls out today. Your podcast, Adele, rolls out today. Lily Mockermans, who is basking in the Mexico City sun at this moment as we speak. Her podcast rolls out today. Melissa, while you're still on, you and I need to call and talk to each other today. Gosh, it's just housekeeping on top of housekeeping. And if you want to know this show and all previous 300 shows, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 301, show notes, links, all this kind of stuff, speed test stuff, all the things we did in the chat will be there as well. With that, and wow, as always, we're well over 2 hours. Thank you for the time. And we'll see everyone, if not Monday or Tuesday or beyond, but definitely on Friday again. So thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.